Hey guys, I'm going to try to make a video clip here just to orient you a little bit more to Anatomy and Physiology Revealed, which comes with your textbook. This is not required for you to use, but I know a few students at least were interested in it with the muscular system. And so I am going to link this again for the nervous system. I have set up some things in here if you would like to look at um, almost all of the nervous system structures that are required for Unit 5 are in here, not everything. What I would advise you to do is to follow along with my video demonstrations first and print out those labeling sheets and kind of nail down the structures. And then if you want to use your Anatomy and Physiology Revealed to give you another perspective and help you learn where these structures are and so forth, that would be a good thing to do because you can actually see them on the virtual cadaver. And then also they do have a 3D anatomy model for the head that's built into Anatomy and Physiology Revealed. They haven't created it yet for the entire human body, but they do have it on the head. It's a little bit awkward to use though, so I'm going to try to, and I'm still learning Anatomy and Physiology Revealed myself, so I'm going to try to walk you guys through this. So again, down here, if you're on this home page in Connect, which I'll have linked in the instructions how to get there, click Anatomy and Physiology Revealed down here in the lower left. And then hit My, because this should have, you should see this nervous system anatomy list that shows up here. If not, click this drop down button over here and you should find it listed in here, nervous system anatomy. And the module you want to pick is the nervous system, since that's what we're studying this time. And so then you're going to get a list that looks like this, which is all of the things that I've added in here. Now there are some things in here from the eye and the ear and so forth that I'm actually not requiring you guys to learn this semester because we're kind of short on time. But I do have them in here if you're interested in looking at those. But just be sure, for the actual test that you guys have to take at the end of the semester, look at your study guide that's posted on Blackboard. And, those are the things you're going to have to identify. Nothing else will be required. So, this gives you a list in alphabetical order. I prefer to look at it by topic because that's going to have things grouped together. So, here it is alphabetical. Click topic over here. And then you can go through here and start looking at things in different regions and so forth, like the spinal cord overview. Again, where it says My Dissection here, that tab will bring you to the virtual cadaver. In most cases, sometimes they have diagrams built in because it's easier to understand some things on a diagram than on a virtual cadaver. And the other thing you guys can use is My 3D Model here. That tab will bring you out to a more of an animated, rotatable 3D model of the head that you guys can check out. And My Animation, I do have some things linked at that tab as well for the nervous system that you might want to take a look at. It might be helpful for understanding both the anatomy and the physiology of the nervous system. But again, what you want to do is, okay, spinal cord overview. And one thing down here in the lower left, which you might not have played around with yet, is these different layers. So you're starting out, and we're looking at the back, right? So if you pull down on that adjustment there, then it brings away the skin, and we're going down deeper. Now we're at the skeletal system, and then you keep going deeper, and now we're beginning to be able to see the spinal cord. So that's what those little adjustment guides are used for over there. And then when you are here, you can click on the name of a structure like dorsal root ganglion, for example, and it brings up, it highlights for you where the dorsal root ganglia are located. They're right off the spinal cord. You can click dura mater, which is a tough covering that you have around the outside of the spinal cord and the brain. And now that might be a little bit confusing if you're not familiar with what the dura mater is. And then you can also click spinal cord. And so that's a little bit deeper inside there. It's highlighting the spinal cord for you. And then let's see. And again, you can go to different views here, like cervical region. Again, you can peel away the skin and the different layers and go in. So that's revealing the spinal cord for you. And then again, you can look at dorsal root. That's a branch that comes off of the spinal cord for each spinal nerve. Spinal nerves are, you might remember that from the beginning of the semester, those branch off of the spinal cord. And there's your dorsal root ganglia. That's a little knot of neuron cell bodies that live together in those little rounded structures. And then you got the ventral root of a spinal nerve. And again, you really have to see that on some other diagrams as well to help that make a little bit more sense. Again, there are some different ways to get around in here. It's like if you click My, that does bring you back to a listing of all of the different structures that I have put on this list for you guys to take a look at. And let's see, let's go down to the brain here for a second. Brain coronal view. So you guys, of course, can click on the brain. That's going to highlight the brain's probably not too hard. Now, sometimes the views, though, so like looking at this view, you might not, just glancing at that image, realize that that's an anterior view of the brain. So if you look up here, they're showing you with that little blue line, that's the plane of your view. That's letting you know that you're looking at the brain you're looking at the anterior, the front part of the brain kind of head on at that location. All right, another helpful thing for you guys to click when you're in here is this information tab over here. And that might be what you want to stay on most of the time when you're in APR looking at things. Because like for the brain, for example, if you click this eyeball over here, it brings up all the other views of the brain and highlights them in orange. So there's an inferior view. You're looking at the underside of the brain. There's the one we were looking at originally. That's the anterior. Let's see. There is a lateral view also. Let's see. For some reason, it's not bringing that one up for us. Let's see. Other views. Some of this, again, I'm still getting used to some of the navigation with this, but there's a lateral view of the brain from the side, and they're showing that inside the cranial cavity. And so some of this brownish papery looking stuff over there, those are the meninges, the covering around the brain. So this is nice. It's giving you some actual cadaver views of things. And let's see. So then you can go through here and click other things like the brain stem. So that's highlighting that for you, and you can do some different views of the brain stem, that part of the brain. Cerebellum. Some of the views can be a little bit confusing. Like, look here, again, they're showing you how the brain was sliced, and then you're kind of looking down on top there. So this is actually part of the brainstem here in white on the anterior side right here, and you're looking down on top of that cut through there. And then here, you're looking downward onto the cerebellum along where that slice cut through it there. So that might be a little bit confusing if you're not familiar with it. But then there's another view of the cerebellum if you were looking upward toward the bottom of the brain itself. I thought they had some other views of the cerebellum as well. I guess not. Let's see. But anyway, you can go through these different things. Cerebrum, that part of the brain. That's most of the brain. That's the thinking part of the brain. All the wrinkly part, that's called the cerebrum, the bulk of the brain itself. Whenever you see this little arrow icon over here, that means there is an animation you can watch associated with those particular structures.
The cerebrum and cerebellum.
And so I think those would be really good for you guys to watch as well. All right, let's see. Now the other thing I want to show you guys is this 3D anatomy model. So we didn't really have this. We had it for the muscles. I didn't show this to you guys for the muscles with APR because they only have the head in here so far. And on muscles right now, they're only doing deeper muscles. They're not doing the surface ones on the 3D anatomy model because they feel like the more superficial ones near the surface, you can see those on the cadaver images pretty well. Now this gets a little bit confusing. So I've struggled a little bit with figuring this out. how to do this. Because, for example, if you come in here and say, okay, well, I want to look at the lobes of the cerebrum. I'm going to look at the frontal lobe. So if I click that, now supposedly I'm viewing the frontal lobe right now, but it doesn't, this is a new thing that they've added, and it doesn't automatically shut off the skull. So it's highlighting the frontal lobe for you of the brain, but it's hidden underneath the skull. So what you have to do is come in here, skeletal system. We want to turn that off so that now we can see the parts of the nervous system that are contained within the skull. And I would probably also recommend that you come down here and turn off the muscular system and turn off the cardiovascular system, just to simplify things a little bit. And another thing you might want to turn off at first, all these yellow branching things that you see sticking off, those are really great representations of the cranial nerves, which are nerves that branch directly off of the brain, and they are one of the major topics for Unit 5. But just to kind of help us see some of the other things and get those out of the way at first, I might turn those off. And so now we can see here in blue, we've got the frontal lobe highlighted. And again, I have this set up so APR should only be giving you structures that I've picked for you guys to look at. There's the occipital lobe back there. Parietal lobes are located there. Temporal lobes over on the sides around what you guys refer to as your temples. And now all these other things over here are deeper parts of the brain. And there's no way, like with a lot of with any of those yet, like the ones I've linked in the class every once in a while. Usually there's some option, well, I just want to hide that structure. And but what we need to do is we need to hide the whole cerebrum. And now we can see these deeper things inside the brain. And anytime when you want to turn it back on, to keep that perspective, you can just flip it on over here, flip it off. So, for example, cerebellum. This is giving us a different view of the cerebellum. There's the cerebellum. And I can turn the cerebrum back on if I want to make sure I understand how the cerebellum is positioned with the cerebrum. I'm going to turn it back off again. Let's see. The brain stem and endocrine glands. Let's see. And you guys don't, well, let's see. I do have a couple of endocrine glands you guys are supposed to be able to see this time. I don't think they have these highlighted on this 3D anatomy model for some reason, unless I just missed them on the list, because I don't see them on your list over here. I might have to go back and add them, because you should be able to look at the pituitary gland, which is right there, but I don't see that on your list over here. I'm going to have to go back and add it. But the diencephalon, highlighted in blue there, which literally means two heads. So that is a structure down deep in the brain toward the inferior part of the brain, which leads to the brainstem. Your brainstem is right down in here. Anterior to the cerebellum, back in here. And medulla oblongata is part of the brainstem, right there. The midbrain is kind of up here at the top of the brainstem, just below the diencephalon, part of the brain. And then there's the pons, kind of there in the center. Those are all parts of the brainstem. And we can shut those off if we want to, or turn them back on, depending on what you would like to take a look at. One thing though, let's go ahead and shut that off, because in order to see the thalamus, which is one of the required structures, that is a structure that is down inside the diencephalon. It's part of the diencephalon. And so we need to shut that more superficial part of the diencephalon off so we can see some of these deeper structures. And this part where it says nuclei, I'm going to go ahead and shut that off. You're actually not required to know those. But now what we can see left in here, there's the thalamus. We click on that. Highlights in blue. And this little red structure here is the hypothalamus. And I actually can't click on that and get that to highlight. That might be a little bit of an error in their system. Like I said, this is a new thing. But another thing I want to highlight for you guys here on some of these deeper brain structures on the 3D model, the ventricular system, the ventricles, that contain cerebrospinal fluid and carry the CSF or cerebrospinal fluid from the structures that make it. Those are called the choroid plexuses in the brain. And then they contain this fluid and it travels through these bluish structures that you see here, the darker blue, and that eventually it leaves those structures and winds up covering the surface of the brain. It's within the meninge structures around the brain and the spinal cord, and also flows around the outside of the spinal cord. But this gives you a pretty good view of what these ventricles look like in 3D. And let's see, I'm probably gonna, let me see if I can hide the thalamus. I'm going to turn that off. And, well, let me hide, yeah, I'm going to hide the hypothalamus. Yeah, so this thing that kind of looks like an alien dinosaur or something here, those are fluid-filled spaces within the brain, represented here in 3D. So that's kind of a neat little view of those. And you guys will see in my video lectures that these two fluid-filled spaces are your lateral ventricles. This is the first and the second. And then this one here, where it kind of looks like an alien or a dinosaur face, is the third ventricle. And that's actually located between the two parts of the thalamus. So if we turn those back on, we can kind of see how that's positioned. Then you've got a little thin tube called the cerebral aqueduct. And let's go back here to ventricular system. So I click on that. See how that little, let's zoom in. You can see how that little stretch right in there has been highlighted. That's a little tube that carries CSF or cerebrospinal fluid from the third ventricle down here. This is the fourth ventricle right in there. And so you can kind of see how that's positioned. That's a fluid-filled space positioned a little bit anterior to the cerebellum. And if you want to see how that's positioned relative to the brainstem, you just come back over here and turn your brainstem back on. And so you can see that it's behind there. And you might say, well, you know, I kind of want to see the cerebellum gone. That'll give me another view. Just flip your cerebellum off. So then you can see there how your fourth ventricle is positioned behind the brainstem. And also, while I've got your brainstem back up, let me click on the midbrain again, because we're getting a better view of the midbrain part of the brainstem again. There's the midbrain, pons, medulla oblongata. So you guys might just find this helpful for giving you another way of looking at some of these structures on something that you can manipulate. And then back up here with this menu, if you click that, that's going to bring up some nervous system animations. And these are ones, don't worry about vision and hearing unless you're just interested in taking a look at those. But all of these would be good for you guys to take a look at. They might help you understand some of the other topics. Neuron physiology. We covered that more. That's how a neuron generates an action potential. We covered that more in Unit 4, but those animations are there as well if you would like another look at those. And I did throw in a couple of clinical applications you guys might want to take a look at, like concussion. For example, what is a concussion? And
a concussion is a brain injury resulting from a violent head impact or rapid head
those are good to look at. We'll give you some clinical medical applications. Anyway, I just kind of wanted to give you a little bit more of an orientation to APR. You know, I'm still learning my way around in it. And again, anytime you want to kind of go back to the main list, click My, and don't forget you can find things alphabetically, or you can do it topic by topic. And the remaining over here is what you haven't looked at yet. So I've made this list of things for people to look at if they would like, and that will just show you what you haven't looked at yet. They also have a quiz function over here. If you wanted to, the only thing I would caution you is that when it comes to test time, the images for the tests are going to, this is taking a little bit of a period of time to load, are going to come from what I demonstrated to you on those video clips in the anatomy model. And again, I did include some things from the eyes and the ears and so forth in here. I'm not requiring those this semester. They're on that list for future semesters when we have a little bit more time, and I do require those. So if you did decide to kind of quiz yourself in here, you're probably going to get a few things from the eyes and the ears that you guys actually don't have to know this semester. And again, anytime you want to go back home, just click that My button. And these tabs, My 3D Model, My Animation, etc., you can find the things to look at. All right, just wanted to put that together for you guys as a little bit more of an orientation to APR, and hope you enjoy playing around with that. I know you guys have got lots of other things to do, but it is there for you guys to check out. I know it's kind of cool to look at things on a virtual cadaver since we don't get to have a cadaver experience in our labs in Biology 201. All right, you guys take care, and let me know if you need any help.